Hillsong. Everybody knows the word. Everybody knows the network of churches all over the world. Some of you may not be as familiar with the Hillsong channel, the global television network run by Hillsong. And today we have a special guest, Binfield, who's the head of film and television for the Hillsong channel, for the Hillsong media, everything they do around the world. And we're going to talk a little bit about television, how he made it in television, and really some insights that might transform your career as you think about the future in media. Today we're going to welcome a friend that I've known for many, many years who started at Hillsong Church as a volunteer, right?
Yeah.
Started as a volunteer, and today he's the head of television and film for Hillsong Global, which includes their television channel, their television network. And so I just want to welcome Binfield because we're going to talk about some things that I think are going to have a huge impact on the future of your career in the media business. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Phil.
Tell me a little bit about how you got here. Where did you come from? Where did you decide you wanted to do television, film?
Right.
Tell me about yourself.
I was probably 17 when I knew I wanted to get into film and television.
Oh.
I saw a commercial being filmed on the side of the road one night in Melbourne City in south of Australia. And all the lights and everyone around was such an energy and a buzz, and I thought, that's what I want to do. And then funnily enough, over the years, I ended up just applying for roles as stagehands and camera assistants. But all throughout the first 10 years of my career, I would be watching other people do their jobs, and I thought, I could do that. I like that. It gets me closer to this, and it gets me more creative. By the time I was 29, I had the opportunity to direct network television drama for a station in Sydney, Australia, on a long-running drama program. And it was myself as a director amongst 50 plus other old directors. And I kind of felt blessed, and I felt really out of my depth in that, but it was kind of a little bit of a dream being answered. And then several years into that, I really felt like what I was putting my hand to wasn't fulfilling, I guess, the deep vastness of my soul and what I felt I was called and purposed to do. I'd been involved with Hillsong since I was 14. It's my home church growing up. And I was volunteering at the same time with their media and TV teams. And so I just started volunteering, directing, editing documentaries, some of our testimony videos, anything I could do to help. And over time, I ended up going back into the industry and just felt like I needed to leave. And then a job came up at the church, and I found myself heading up a team of, at that stage, it was about 8 creatives doing all of Hillsong's media. And I was told when I came on, look, you know, you can just do whatever you want, be creative, make what you want, all that kind of stuff. And then I realized very quickly that managing 8 creative people was probably one of the hardest jobs, and it took full-time responsibility.
True.
Yeah. So that's where I am today. And then I'm almost 10 years in this role, and in the last 3 years, we've seen the Hillsong channel come to life through TBN, which has been a massive miracle for our church. So from an internal church team now to overseeing 70 plus staff around the world, running a global channel that runs 24/7 called the Hillsong channel.
You know, I use you as an example. Also, Simon, some other filmmakers that have come out of Hillsong, I've used you guys as examples that you can learn and prepare a career in a church setting. I mean, I know numerous church media guys who now have careers in Hollywood or New York doing commercials or feature films. So there's no question that excellence is excellence. And if you're doing it in a church or a studio or anywhere else, you could start a career there. And you're a great example of that.
Right. And to be honest, when I was younger, I would never have thought. I mean, people often say, you know, if somebody told you, you know, in the early 20s, you'd be working for a church and doing this. I would never have thought that would be the case. But my heart was really for filmmaking. And television just seemed to be the pathway that helped me get the chops to tell stories and turn projects over. But now I really do feel like I'm in my calling. I'm in the lane that God had called me to. And, you know, I love the experience in the career side of secular television because it gave me the skill set to be able to bring that into the ministry and help raise the level.
So your pastors, Brian and Bobby Houston, seem to have a real tilt toward creative people. They seem to really love that kind of environment. What, you know, does that make it significant for you and much easier to work? I mean, I know a lot of people listening to this probably have a pastor that has no clue how to deal with creative people. Maybe he's unsure about them, doesn't trust them. You know, how important is it that a pastor understand how to lead and how to create an environment where creative people can really excel?
Well, I think it's really important because when people come to a service on a Sunday or when you're creating something, yes, you want excellence to be there, but you want to be telling stories that bring people closer to God. At the end of the day, it's what a pastor's job is.
Right.
You in media and whatever your job is, that's what your job is too.
Yeah.
Pastor Brian and Bobby have an amazing vision, and we always are looking to that vision, and there's always more vision than there is resource, and so we're always finding ourselves that the moment we find we're just settled and we think, no, we're good, a next layer kind of unfolds. But I think in a church like ours, with the worship, with our television now, the way we do services and conferences and everything, excellence has always been at the heart of it, because God deserves it and we believe in that. So yeah, they are quite freeing creatively, but I think there's been something about our church that attracts creative people in, where they can feel like they're at home, and then they can bring their gifts to the table, bring their creativity to the table.
Now, a lot of people look at Hillsong and think, man, creativity just flows. It's like some fountain you have in the lobby of the church. It just never stops. Creativity comes easy. Doing innovative media projects comes easy. It's not always as easy as it looks, I bet. I mean, do you have frustrations? Do you have struggles? Deadlines are a problem, I assume, everywhere, right?
Well, there's always deadlines, and we have events at church, which, by this date, an event's going to happen, and whether you're ready or not, it's going to happen.
True.
And we don't often set what date the event's going to be based on how much work needs to be done. The date is the date. So yeah, there are deadlines, there are pressures, there can be frustrations, but I think when the spirit of a team and the culture of a team is all about solutions, not about the problems, and people can rally together, there's power in that. And so there's nothing we can overcome together with the power of a team together. I think when people start working isolated, that's when people end up going all sorts of different directions. They want to serve their own vision and not the church's vision, and it can create tension within the teams. But no, we're good. We've got a great team, but culture really is the glue that kind of keeps us all together, and that's what I love.
All right, talk about that culture for a minute. What does it take in a church environment particularly to create that kind of creative culture? Because I'm one of these, culture is more important than vision. I know visionary pastors who are never going to see that vision happen because they have this horrible, oppressive culture at their organization. What do you do as the leader of the film and television team? How do you create that kind of creative culture?
I think you need to see the gold in people. I think it's really easy to ride people off with ideas. I think as a leader, I used to think when I first started early in my leadership journey that I had to direct everything, I had to control everything, it had to be the way that I saw it. And really the power and the dynamic of true creativity is when you release others to be creative. And look, sure, sometimes you can get things wrong. Sometimes you're a day away from launching it and you're seeing it for the first time and you're like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with this? But people, you have to try creativity. You have to fail at creativity to be able to know what's good and know what works, and you have to develop people. But within, like I said before, our culture is we're about solutions. We're not about the problems. We're about what we have, not what we don't have. And I think when that spirit and the mentality comes in with people, the sky's the limit.
That's good.
And Pastor Brian always says, he always wants to raise the ceiling on leaders. Our team, our people should never feel like that the ceiling's on them, that their neck's getting sore because of that. And we're always looking for ways to be able to lift that in people.
Awesome. So I had a filmmaker in my office the other day, and all he could talk about was he shot on red cameras. I mean, he must have mentioned it 12 times. I got so tired of listening to this red camera. You don't seem obsessed with equipment. You seem more obsessed with people and ideas and creativity. Right. Where's that balance? Where do you find?
Well, I think everything comes down to story. I mean, look, when I was younger, I used to be the guy that used to be fascinated about those things. Yeah. But after a while, you saw a few films that came out probably 7-10 years ago that were shot on handy cams, and you thought, okay, well, the story was great, and I still believed in it, and I was there, and I was connected emotionally. So yeah, technical is good. I mean, you want things that look good. It's the shop front window. It's how you present the quality of how things look. But story is what holds people in the engagement. So yes, if you can have great equipment and great storytellers, you got it. But if you have a handy cam and great storytellers, I think you're just as good.
Yeah, much better than a red camera or something else and bad storytellers.
Oh no. No one's ever looking at a story thinking, isn't that beautiful, that 8K or that high definition? They're looking at how they can respond to that and how they...
Well, so when you got the call from Brian Houston about launching the Hillsong channel, did you start with, okay, what equipment we need to buy, or did you start with what's the team we need to create?
Yeah, the team straight away, and also the fear of how are we going to create 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, we went
Terror.
we went from producing a half-hour weekly program for Pastor Brian to, at a minimum, 12 hours a week of content. Thank goodness we're cable, so we can have a high rotation of repeats. But still 12 hours a week from 30 minutes a week to 12 hours. And we base ourselves out of Sydney, and it's not an epicenter for television. And so finding people, within our church, because we always believe in raising leaders within the church. We don't go out and just hire anybody else, because we want people that have the same spirit and they're on board with the vision. Heart and culture will always trump skill for us. And look, I've tried it both ways, and I can tell you that's probably the best way to do it.
Well, I've been to Hillsong a number of times in Sydney, been behind the scenes, with your guys.
Right.
And you do use a lot of volunteers.
We do.
And what's the secret for inspiring volunteers, particularly in the media department? Because so many people, I talk to so many media directors that say, volunteers can't be trusted, they won't show up on time, I can't get volunteers excited, I'm not interested in volunteers. What do you say to that?
I think it comes down to vision. I think people are led by vision. I think people want to be a part of something that is bigger than the part that they play. And I think when you can put vision in front of people, when you can allow them not just to do a job for the church, but when they feel like what God's called them to do and what's part of their purpose is fulfilled through the local church, you'll have people. And community is important. I think a lot of churches can easily, especially as services, they do more service times and they start other locations, it can get really busy, and there's a lot of logistics and organizing, and you just need people to turn up on time and do a job, and you want to thank them at the end. But community is what holds. Church is community. It's not a job. And I've always thought with volunteers, the only things as staff to volunteers we should always be saying is please and thank you. They're giving of their time.
True.
We're all there at one point in time as a volunteer. And I volunteered because I saw what the church was doing, and I believed that it was making a difference, and that's what I wanted to be a part of. So that's what I think with volunteers, you want to create that atmosphere and that culture.
And the truth is, I think if you've created that culture and that inspirational attitude, they want to work hard. I mean, so many people tell me, well, they're volunteers, so I can't really tell them to do anything.
Right.
If they've bought into the vision, you can. They're like an employee.
Well, for me, when I was 14, it was a training ground.
Yeah,
I mean, when I got my first job at 18 at a network studio, I knew how to set up and do white balance on 3 cameras.
Yeah.
And I remember the guy that was hiring me at the time says, "You're 18. How did you even learn that?" And I said, "My church." And he said, "What church do you go to?" And I said, "Well, it's Hillsong Church." But it gave me the platform for me to be able to get more experience.
Yeah.
And so, from now, I always say to people, never underestimate where you can help take people in their experience and their skill set by being planted in a local church and being part of it.
So tell me a little bit about your relationship with Pastor Brian Houston. I mean, do you have his ear? Is he interested in the stuff you're doing in production? What kind of relationship y'all have?
Yeah, I think we have a great relationship. I've been a part of serving his vision and Hillsong's vision since I was young, as a part of the church. And because I can see myself within that vision, we're one-hearted, we're one-minded when it comes to the things that we're doing. The relationship's good, and I think the relationship needs to be good. I mean, these days, somebody as a media director or heading up the television department can speak to millions of people across a week, versus the maybe hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands that they can. And so I think that the relationship needs to be there, but I also think that as a media director, you need to understand that you're serving the pastor's vision, and I think that's key.
That's good.
Pastor Brian always said to me years and years and years ago that when there's more than one vision, it creates division. And people in the team need to be on board with the one vision.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if everyone's going, well, this is what I want to do and this is where I want to be in 5 years and so on and so forth, it creates division within the team. But I think that relationship's key, and I think any pastor, executive pastor, senior pastor should have a close relationship with their media person, understanding that the platform that they've entrusted them to speaks to thousands, tens of thousands,
Yeah.
potentially millions in a broadcast setting or a streaming setting every single day.
Can you change a pastor's habits? You know, a lot of people, a lot of media guys come to me complaining about, well, he turns in his sermon notes really late. We never know what he's going to do, or he shows up late at the taping when we have to shoot. Are you going to change him, or do you need to adjust the culture to fit the way the pastor, his personality?
I think it's a bit of both. I think you've got to pick which fights you want to fight. Sometimes it's just personality, and sometimes it's their routine. Their sermon notes come in late, and because they're praying that morning, they want to add stuff in, and they don't want to give it too early. But you know, we roll with whatever, and we always create a culture that things are last minute. People often say with Hillsong, you know, it comes down to the last minute. But I think if people are ready for that, it's exciting too, because it's like live television, right?
Yeah.
But no, I think you always want to be able to get around that pastor and make sure that they have. Look, they're not TV personalities,
Right.
You know, they get into what they're doing because they're called to preach the gospel and build a
Great
local
point.
church. Television cameras come along, and I think as people who love television, we expect our pastor just to be one-take wonders and articulate and be able to just fill 2 minutes with something that's inspiring. It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's really hard work doing it. And so that relationship, comfortability on set with them, making sure that they're comfortable, that's not stroking an ego or pandering to that. I think it's just supporting them and letting them know that, hey, you do what you do best. We'll help you fit it to what's going to work for the medium, and together we'll make something the best we can.
And to pastors, I always say that, you know, you're preaching to 500 people, 1,000 people, 5,000 people in your congregation, but your media person, that woman or man who's running your media, can make that available to so many more thousands. Because of me, I met a pastor in the Midwest recently at a conference I spoke at, who preaches to 700 people in his congregation, but he's got 10,000 people watching him on his live stream. Right. So just that alone tells me that if you're a pastor, you should work with your media guy. If you're a media person, you should work with your pastor. Yeah. That relationship is critical.
Yeah, and I think when it comes down to, you know, Sunday services or preaching, especially if you're capturing that for a program, we're living in an age now, like you said, where there are more people on the outside of the walls of our churches sometimes watching. And so that balance between engaging with the camera and engaging with your congregation.
Yep.
And I think there needs to be a careful balance. And I love the way that Pastor Brian does it, because he makes sure that people in the room don't feel like it's all about the people through the television screen, but the people on the television screen understand that, you know, it's about a local church as well.
Good.
And so it's a balance. And I think when you work and you watch and you critique and you have a look at how things can be better. But today is a fascinating world. More churches now are doing multi-campuses. They're doing satellite links between services. And so, I think now's the time, if people haven't gotten used to and got the experience, you've got to get in there and you've got to learn how to be able to do that to be more effective.
That's really true. And, you know, so we kind of have a generation that's grown up on YouTube that's used to shooting single camera stuff. But multi-camera video, television is still vitally important, like you say. I mean, I know we work with churches that are sending signals between campuses. Live streaming is just much bigger than I ever thought it would be. It's huge. And broadcast television eventually. In fact, you know, it's funny that we talk about migrating to the web, but the truth is people, I fly, as you do, a couple 100,000 miles a year, and I walk up and down airplanes, and I'm watching people on their iPads watching stuff for broadcast TV. So even though it's being viewed on other devices, broadcast TV is still much more powerful than people think.
It still is very powerful, and it's a powerful weapon for the church to be able to keep pushing the gospel through to areas that people don't darken the door of a church.
That's good.
Or a part of a community. So,
all right, give me 3 things you think a church media director should be concerned with right now. What if you gave me 3 pieces of advice for church media directors? What would you say?
Develop a great relationship with your pastor. Talk to them about the vision and where they see things heading and how you can serve that. 2, I would say, build a great team and a healthy culture. Create an environment where you want to turn up and work in. Create that for others. And thirdly, I would say is just get on your knees. I know this sounds over spiritual, but we can't do it without God. I mean, television, broadcasting the gospel is his idea. And every now and again, we make some great shows that we're really proud of, and we can think really highly of ourselves. And sometimes we just have to humble ourselves and think, God, you've put us here.
Yeah.
We've offered our hands. You've placed us here. What do you want? What do you need? And sometimes I think within that creativity and that idea, sometimes we leave him off to the side too much, and he's like, hey, I've got an idea. I think I can help you fix it. And we're kind of like, hang on, I'm just busy at the moment. I need to hit this deadline. And so, I would say those three things.
Good. All right, if there was something you would have media directors stop doing, what do you see that a lot of people are doing that you wish they wouldn't?
Look, I think it comes back to team again. I think it's you may have something pretty clear in your heart of the way that you think it needs to be. Never underestimate the power of team. And I think release people to experiment with their gifts. Give them time to be able to see what they can do. I love seeing young people come in, people out of high school come in and just sit by an editor and watch. And you can see over the years, and it takes time. It takes time to develop people. But some of those guys that have come straight out of college or straight out of high school has come on as volunteers or part of our youth ministry, and then today are creating some of the biggest projects that we've ever done. And so once again, look for the gold in people. Stop controlling everything. Stop feeling like you have to be the last person to say it and you have to exalt your authority. It's not about that. At the end of the day, the idea is what wins, not the fact that it's yours.
So what's in the future for Hillsong Channel?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, we're 2.5 years in, and I feel like we've only just got on our feet, to be honest.
That's good.
We're learning how television and how media works, how to engage with audiences better. And there's some science, this is your bread and butter, right? There's some science to creating programming that sticks.
Yeah.
And I think you even quoted this, we live in an 8-second world, know, and the gospel is too important to have people kind of just get lost in these long programming and boring conversations. And so we're looking at programming that kind of hits a cultural divide. We're an international channel, and so the challenge for us is we can't kind of stick with a certain demographic. We've got to cater for all demographics. And a lot of ages, because Hillsong, when you look at our demographic, we're from 6 through to 86. There is no one kind of key target. So look, it's exciting. Look, I think that we just look to the horizon, to be honest, and thank God for the opportunity that we have. But I want to create television and content that changes the game. I think that's, for me, that's part of our church vision, which is reaching the unreachable. And I think Christian television has done a great job up until now of meeting the needs of people where they're at. And a lot of people have come to Christ and have found a deeper relationship with him through media. And I think there's a younger generation coming through that tell stories differently, that they want to talk about different things. And so I want to put my finger on that, as uncomfortable as some of those conversations are, and sometimes as forbidden as they are within Christian television. I want to be able to reach people through that.
It's interesting when you say that, I'm thinking that old people want to be cool too. I have a lot of ministries that come to me. We do a lot of work with rebranding and repositioning a media ministry. And they'll say, well, Phil, we need to not be too hip, not too contemporary, because we have a lot of older donors or a lot of older viewers. But the truth is, people in their 70s, late 70s, are still the rock and roll generation. If Led Zeppelin didn't blow them away back in the day, and the Rolling Stones, your hip logo is not going to blow them away today. And I think you've proven the fact, I've been preaching it for years, but you've proven the fact that if you focus on being really contemporary, just really pushing the edge, the older audience is going to come along with you. I mean, like you say, you have people that go up to 86 years old watching the channel. And so I mean, what would you say to people who are concerned about, but we still minister to older people, that's our audience. I'm concerned about being too hip. Is that an issue with you at all?
To be honest, I very rarely sit in meetings where that's an agenda. I think we've always just thought, let's just be authentic to who we are. Pastor Brian's always led like that too, it's just like, let's just be who God's called us to be. And, some people have problems with that, and then some people do. And we find the people that are attracted to the ones that see that authenticity. And so I think you can project a brand and think we want to create this. If it's not what you are, then don't project something that you're not. Be authentic, because people will get past the branding and then meet you and then realize it was just a branding exercise. So be authentic, be who you are, be who God's called you to be, and be comfortable in that skin and confident. and lead with that confidence just to do what you need to do.
You know, a lot of church media directors and producers want to do outside stuff. So we work in a church, we work for a ministry, but I want to go do these commercials, or I want to do a feature film, or I want to do a documentary outside. You've wrestled with that, I'm sure, before. And you even were one of the producers of the Hillsong movie, Let Hope Rise. And so how do you deal with that when you see an outside opportunity? Is it okay for church media people to pursue that? Should they stick with what they do? What do you think?
For me, I had to understand, what has God called me to do? What's the vision that He has for my life? And within those parameters, opportunities, it's an easier decision to make whether I need to do that or not.
So you're not doing hot tub commercials?
No, I'm not doing anything like that. But there's a I have a burning desire to make feature films, and there's things are seasonal. I think if I pushed my way through to do that 7 years ago, I would have failed miserably.
Yeah.
If I did it tomorrow, I would probably still fail miserably. But I think there's times to understand, what are you actually in it for? And when you hop around, and I think you got to look at it, is it gaining me experience out there to benefit the local church, if I'm called to benefit the local church? Am I doing it for money? Am I doing it for credibility? And I think you have to get real with yourself and list, why do I actually want to do it? Because if it doesn't come back to where God's got you and what He's got for your life, then don't waste your time. Life's too short to go and do all of that kind of thing. So true. And to me, I had multiple revelations throughout my last 10 years being in this role with Hillsong, but the one that keeps rearing its head all the time after blood, sweat and tears of setting up shoots and long hours and getting the shoot done is, we reach the point of the end of a service and an altar call is given and people are raising their hands and giving their life to Jesus. And everything in me stops at that moment and my heart just gets wrecked. And I always feel like God always says that's what it's about. All of the long haul flights, all of the frustrations, all of the mass expansion and don't know how to do it and the fear that's inside, all comes down to people saying, yes, I want to give my life to Christ and I want to live for Him. And I think that for me, when you can funnel it all down to one thing, you wrote a book on what is your one thing. Yeah. For me, it's that. It's how do we see people enter the kingdom of God? And how can I play my part in helping them see God in a way that maybe they haven't seen before or they find has been blocked before. And so I would say for the person that wants to go out and do things, just write down a vision statement for yourself. And if it's, I want to work out in the outside world because I want to make money, right, well, then just get on your knees and work out why do you want money? Do you believe that God will provide? Follow Him, sow yourself into the ministry, whether that be in a local church or whether it be to your calling. But yeah, just be about who you know. Like I said, for me, my greatest fear, and it's not a fear that torments me, but is I don't want to die and look back and think of everything I could have done, but I didn't out of fear. Yeah, life's too short. I'm 38 now. I mean, it was my 38th birthday. I started thinking about 40 straight away, right? And I'm thinking, 40, what am I doing with my life? Yeah. And this thing kicks into gear where you think, gosh, there's so much more. And my body starts fatiguing. And, you start thinking about all the reality of life. And I think we have to get serious about what are we here for? What's the time we have? And focus on what we need to do. And make decisions that fall in line with what God has for you. We can make a real mess of our lives if we don't, allow God to guide it. So.
And I believe some people, it is time to leave. What happens in your case, for instance, if you lose that spark, if you realize maybe it's not happening for me here? I know some people that are so fearful of moving on, they stay in a job they hate for years and years, and that doesn't help the organization, it doesn't help them. What do you say to those people?
You definitely don't want that. Once again, if you're being led and you believe that's God leading you into a new season, you have to do it. You have to take that step of faith. Don't be in a position or a place where you don't feel like your faith's being built, you have opportunity to be able to do things. And sometimes it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. You can't start in your first week in a new role and just expect everybody to bow down and give you everything you need and create the space. Sometimes it takes time. And I think during those seasons, God is transforming inside of us something that is going to help us get through, when the door opens. And so never underestimate the season that you're in, whether it feels hard.
Yeah.
Pray, ask God, what are you doing in me that needs to change before you're going to allow me to get through to the next thing? But yeah, people do need leave. We often, maybe several times a year, I'll have staff that'll come, and they're great people, and you think these people are here long term, and they say, you know what, I think my season's coming to an end. And you can get really insecure and think, what have I done, as a leader?
Right.
But the best thing you can do is just say, look, can we just pray? Like I'd love to keep you, but if you're feeling like you're called to be somewhere else, I want to make sure that you're absolutely certain about that, because at the end of the day, people being positioned to where God needs them is the most important thing. Salary won't fulfill you. A city won't fulfill you. Having opportunity, with film, you can be right in the heart of Hollywood and still be feeling so empty.
I can tell you, Hollywood is full of miserable people, I can tell you.
Right. And I think if you put your faith and trust in your ability to be creative, it's always futile. I think the bigger picture, like I said before, is what's God's agenda? God's agenda is to reconcile man to him through his son Jesus. And so for me and my personal calling, there's no better place to do that than the local church. And so that's where I am, and that's where I'm called to be.
You use the word insecure, and I think that goes for people leaving you, that goes for you, you hiring people. I think the key is insecure people don't hire smart people because they want to be the smartest guy in the room. And I think you really want to have a team of people that are smarter than you are, because a rising tide raises all boats. And then when people leave, have the security to feel like, great, I want to bless them, help them move on. This is not an attack on me. I think security is so incredible. And you mentioned Hollywood. Hollywood's full of insecure people. And the church is too, actually. So I think a key part of this is a media director, a communications director, any kind of media leader. Being secure in who you are, what God's called you to be, is absolutely critical.
Yeah, and look, I think the best thing to do is understand that God will provide the next season. And when you have good people leave and you think, gosh, they've just pulled the rug out from underneath me, and it affects you, it really does, especially people that are close to you and people that carry a massive load within. You can kind of be shell-shocked and you think, well, where am I now? Like, what can I do now? But God is faithful and he does provide. And once again, you got to find the gold in people within, and you've just got to be led by his timing that the right person will come, and they will.
So, what's the biggest mistake you ever made at Hillsong Channel? Big screw up? Be honest.
Gosh. To be honest, I'd probably erase them out of my mind. They're not quick to draw from. Look, I think, I wouldn't say they're big mistakes. We haven't had any kind of fatal mistakes or anything, catastrophes. But, I think every day we find things that we can improve and tweak. And I think our team's really great at that. We look at things and we think, that was really great. There's a few things we could perfect for next time, and let's do that next time. But I think as we tweak... You're not afraid
of failure, though?
Not afraid of failure. No, and quite often, some things you think are a big fail and you put them out there because you have no choice. And you get the most feedback on it, how much it blessed people. And so sometimes I feel like my radar on what is like a failure and what is successful sometimes is way off. And I think that's just the hand of God. I think he uses things in our failings to reach people regardless of what we've done to it.
Well, I'm a big believer in trying new things, because the quicker you fail, the more time you have to fix it. Before you actually let it out there. So failure is not a terrible thing.
No, it's not a terrible thing. That's how we learn. No, I think if people haven't failed, they haven't learned. And I think creativity comes from failing. And most of my friends that I would say are like super creative, like just geniuses, 80% of their working week is failing. And they get so frustrated with themselves, but they get better and better and better off that failure. So
awesome. Well, I've known you for a very long time. I've been totally impressed with your leadership here, both at Hillsong and at the channel now. And I just am really excited to see where you're going. And you've become an incredibly mature media executive and creative person. And thanks for doing this. I'm very, very grateful. Appreciate you doing it.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in on this episode. You can all join everything together at philcooke.com. Come check out my blog, philcooke.com, where we talk about issues of faith, culture, and media. We're always doing interviews like this and teaching about how you can take your career from where it is to where it needs to be. Keep looking for these. Go share them with your friends. If you know somebody that would benefit from the subject we talked about today, share it. Give us a rating on iTunes and comment on YouTube. We're out there on all these different platforms, and we really want more people to see and benefit from these incredible interviews we're doing with remarkable people in the media business. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode.